Hi, everyone. Uh, so this is, I'm really thrilled to be talking about something that I know a lot of founders have, struggled with, which is selling security to uh, large companies and enterprises and just not knowing how to go about it when there are so many different companies that you're competing with. Especially when you come up with this era where budgets are decreasing continuously, there are so many things you'll have to worry about. And so, that's what we'll talk about. I personally have been on the other side of the table as I worked in corporate environments for about 10 years now, both in US as well as in India. In US, I worked with Amazon, Oracle, and now Salesforce, as well as, and now, I'm still doing the Salesforce stuff. I lead the global offensive security team. So that's like the red team, the penetration testing team, as well as Gen AI security for overall Salesforce. Okay. And while I did all of this work, I've done both engineering stuff as well as management and leadership stuff. So I have like a good idea of how when people try to sell stuff to us, how to, how things change. So I've sat through pitches, I've looked at demos, I've, helped make decisions around, is this the product we want to buy for us? And that's what I want to talk to you about today. Before we dive deep into this, this is subjective. This take is subjective, and it's not my employer's opinion. So please take whatever I say with a grain of salt and adapt it to your own experiences, rather than just taking this as, this is exactly how we need to go about it. So when you sell your, AppSec product, security product to any of the large enterprises, there are a bunch of phases you have to go through. The first is just getting your foot in the door, which is where you're just trying like, hey, please try me out. I'm good. Give me some time of the day so I can show you what it is. That's your phase one. Phase two is someone gives you some time of the day, you go in, and then you have to do a successful proof of concept. Once that proof of concept feels successful, then you move in, and then you don't get deployed into the entire enterprise. It's mostly a single team, a single product, or like a business unit, a small business unit that's going to use your things. And then with a lot of luck and a lot of hard work, you kind of then expand into the overall enterprise. So we'll try to talk about things in each of these phases and what are like small things that can give you an edge when you're competing when everyone is awesome and selling the same sort of product. Like how do you stand out? So the first is getting in the enterprise. That's, getting your foot in the door. One thing I've noticed across is that when people try to sell products, they focus a lot on the leadership. You're going to go, you're going to target and look at, okay, who are the managers, who are the directors, VPs, CISO. That's where you want to target. That's a good idea, but you're kind of missing the big picture, is what I feel in these things. In any organization, there are decision makers and there are decision influencers. And those influencers are hidden. Usually those are your senior security engineers, your principal security engineers. They don't have that fancy title, but their opinion carries a lot of weight to the decision makers. So when you try to approach and get your foot in the door, try to target them also. Just from a personal experience, when I was an engineer, I did not used to receive a lot of pitches. The moment I transitioned into a managerial leadership role, LinkedIn kept coming in like, hey, this is a product, this is a product, this is a product. And so I felt people were missing a really big picture on that. Now, how do you find those right people? Because, from looking outside in, you don't really know what the internal dynamics are. So the easy way to do that is to actually ask the people who love to talk. So conferences like these, you're going to find a lot of speakers in different companies. There's a very obvious thing, they do love to talk, that's why they're here. Similarly, you can find people who post on LinkedIn a lot, on Blind, on Twitter, on Reddit. about their companies. What that says is that those guys really want to get their information out. So talk to them and ask them, hey guys, who might be the right engineers who, this product can solve the problem of, and then talk to them. The added advantage there is, because no one really reaches out to them, those guys are actually a little bit more receptive because they are not overwhelmed at that point. Now, assume you've kind of gotten some engineer and some decision maker saying, "Yep, looks good. Let's try this out if this actually works." The next step then comes to a proof of concept. One thing I've realized across is that so many tools that people wanted to sell to any of the enterprises just die at that stage. It's like POCs never go to the next stage. Why? Because it's just too tough to do them. POCs even in larger enterprises, because it's only just one team doing it, are done by sometimes like a very small team, like a sub-team, or sometimes even one engineer. And there's a lot of friction in an enterprise company. So you have to go create like a bunch of tickets that then get approved by someone else saying, hey, can I try this product? And then, you know how all of these enterprises work. And so your job, your single mission when you're trying to do these enterprises, when you're trying to do these POCs, is to make it extremely easy for a single person to do a POC on their single laptop without requesting any additional accesses. So that's like your technical stuff. I'll give you an example, okay? So a bunch of product security companies, they come and say, hey, give me access to your CI/CD pipeline. I'm going to show you some real good stuff, real time. Sometimes they say, give me host access. Now, all of those require a bunch of tickets that go through person by person by person. So don't do that. You don't have to show your real-time stuff at all, right? You request zip files. Like, hey, just give me a zip file. That's all I need. I don't need any access. You request your URLs. You're like, hey, you engineer who's doing the POC, you have access to the URL. Just give me the URL. I will handle it. The other problem that happens a lot from a compliance perspective is that people say, hey, I have an awesome SaaS product. Just upload your content to me. I'll handle it. And you're going to get awesome results. Well, that's a big compliance problem. We can't really do that. And so figure out if there is like a self-hosted limited capability thing that the engineer can deploy on their laptop that they can then do a POC on. At that point, no data leaves their network, their laptop. And so it's very easy to work with compliance at that because it's a very easy thing to do internally in an enterprise. So think about how you make it ridiculously easy to do a POC. You don't need to showcase all of your real-time capabilities for that. Now, if your product is good, and as they do POC, people are getting excited, now your next thing is to get them to be your advocates, to be your champions. You have your champions inside the organization. So those will be your engineers whose problems you're solving, whose lives you're making easier. And then, you need to turn them into heroes. Corporate employees, just like everyone, have their own incentives. Those are recognitions, they care for promotions, the whole corporate ladder. And so figure out how you can have the people who use your product get those things internally. So your two stakeholders, you might think, hey, it's just the leadership, but it's not. It's also the engineer actually doing the POC, the engineer running it, the team running it, PMs who have to send out like a bunch of stuff, the product managers who have to send a bunch of stuff around why this is the right tool for us, as well as the CISO, right? So all the whole chain. So you need to understand the internal corporate dynamics, understand why using this tool that you're trying to sell helps them get what they want while improving overall security for the organization. So there are don't just focus on one, find the balance and do both. Now, how do you kind of do and help these guys get what they want? So most often product security tools, application security tools, they just find issues. They'll be like, hey, these are your 50 different issues that you have to worry about, or 500, 5,000, whatever that you find. Some of them will be like, these are your 5,000 issues, and then, we will fix a lot of them. So some find and fix. Some find and block. But what that does, at the leadership level, we know no tool is perfect, and that what you're finding is basically just your coverage. So, there are a bunch of unknown issues that we know your tool cannot find, and everyone knows that. So how do you, show that, hey, it's not just this small thing that my tool can do, but a lot more, and help your champions in return? So an example could be you could do root cause analysis for why these issues actually come up. You as a tool who works with different enterprises has a lot of data, and you can use that to do some of these things. And if you show them that, hey, this looks like the root cause for why my tool keeps finding these issues in your organization, your champions, the people who use it, can actually go and work with their leaders to fix it and eliminate entire set of vulnerabilities. Now that shows, your champion, your team, they are like, I want to use this product because this product makes me looks good. And then they become bigger champions of your product across, and that loop comes up. So an example here would be, suppose you're a software composition analysis tool. You keep finding like, hey, there are these 15 vulnerable libraries that are there all the time, and you just do it again and again and again. What you could do as you analyze is that, hey, I have found this vulnerable library 5 times. That means there might be they might not have how to onboard open source projects in their overall process. How do they do it, right? So that's an insight that you've just gotten just based on how you found the issues. So, and then you kind of share that sort of information. Hey, if you want to fix it at the root, these are the various ways that different companies try to manage their third-party libraries so that vulnerable components do not come up even at this point. And another way to do it would be to identify correlations. So, again, you have your findings, but what's the second order inference we can make from your findings? And that means, suppose your tool is, being POC'd for one business unit, and you have absolutely zero coverage area on any other ones. Can you, using just that one business unit, able to infer something about the other ones? Can you help other business units where your tool isn't even there? And that's how you can identify some of these things. I'll give you an example. But before doing that, what happens is, if you can do these correlations, your champion, your team, the person who's like now really passionate about your tool, can take that and work with a lot of different developers, a lot of different leaders of business units, and go in and, and it helps them in their growth. It makes your tool being deployed across the enterprise. So an example, this, for the same thing, right? Software composition analysis. You can say something like, hey, we've noticed the library showed up in 4 of your products. There is a high probability it will be present in your other products like X, Y, whatever the other ones are. And now that's something that the person who's been using your product never really even thought about. But now he has something to go outside of his silo and talk about your product with other people. Similarly, you know that, hey, we found this library and we've noticed that people often misconfigure it in a certain way. Please go and check that it's not actually like this in your way, in how you're deploying it. Now, again, that gives that person the opportunity to go and talk about your tool with others. It makes this person looks good because growth, it helps your tool, and it helps the overall security. So these are like some very simple things on how you do it. But the really important thing there, now you'd look at this and you'd have like a lot of ideas, like, hey, I can do this, this, this. Just don't BS, right? Like this is really, really important because people get very carried away in this sort of thing and create like BS correlations or root cause analysis that are absolutely wrong. And The thing is, if your analysis is incorrect, people really start to ignore it, like very, very easily. They'll be like, I'm just going to ignore this random stuff that comes up and only going to focus on the find and fix or find and monitor thing. And keep the volume low. Because corporate teams, even though they might look like, hey, like we have a lot of people doing a lot of work, people are still overwhelmed. So keep the volume low, give them high quality insights that you can get outside. And that turns a lot of people who are just using your tool into champions and gives your probability higher of being used across. The other thing that I think a lot of people miss is, in enterprise, everyone has a boss and everyone needs to report on what they are doing, why they are doing, what's the actual stuff. And so get your, have something that gives you like one-click reporting. And you already know who your stakeholders are, so you need to target your reporting in certain ways. So not just numbers. Like most of the tools I see, they'll be like, hey, we found 5 critical, some high, something. And, when you have 10 different tools, who cares? It's just something like numbers come up. So you actually should be able to do narratives, insights, and trends. So we've already talked about some of the insights that you can create. Those can become part of your reporting. And the granularity with which your reporting goes should be for each different sort of stakeholder. So, like engineer might care about something else, and the CISO might care about something else. You can identify trends, you can do a bunch of things with reporting. And this is like one of the killer features. If you have good reporting, like corporate employees feel very, very happy. Now, moving on. Suppose now everyone is like, yep, looks good. We are now going to deploy it in production for a single BU because, you guys are awesome. What now? Now it's all about prioritization. So you need to understand if the team that is purchasing your product, if the team that's using your product actually has enough time and resources to use it in the right way. Like your intention is, your product is awesome. These guys, they kind of know and they are trying it out and they don't have time. They are under so much time pressure. They have 50 different things to do. So you need to understand that. That's a very, very important part of doing that. And then how much time do they need to configure your product before it actually becomes useful? And that means in their particular environment, how much burden do they have to take to actually make this a good tool and valuable tool for them? So that's like an important stuff. So the thing here is when you're first time going into the production, less is more. Like I have seen tools who come in and say, I am awesome. Here are 100,000 issues that you need to fix. And people are like, yep, let's close that. We'll buy a different tool. Because it's just not like you can't really prioritize. You have to do a bunch of stuff at that point. And so, like for example, severity of the issue. They'll be like, hey, you have 50, 500 criticals. No, that's not true. Don't just use CVSS or something generic. Incorporate environment factors in your tool. Like it's easy to, for example, hey, where is the host located? Is it actually like public data or is it like internal data? We don't know that. And for even public data, you'd be like, hey, something bad is happening, fix it critically. And no one really cares because we have like millions and millions of stuff to worry about. Similarly, a rule set, right? Like people come in and like pitch and be like, hey, I can identify 500 types of things. No one cares. It's actually about, hey, I can do these 10 things really, really well. This is the rule set of 10 that does not give you a false positive at any point in time. And that works really well compared to like 100 rule set. And so your default should always be less things done very well compared to more things done okay. And sometimes even more things done very well. So less very well, more very well, and even like more okay is how the thing should go. And yes, these are the things that basically increase your luck surface area. I think there's a huge part that the luck plays a very, very big part in enterprise sales because it all depends on, hey, did anyone give you some time to buy or, to even demo your product? And then about, hey, what does the budget look like at this quarter when you're trying to sell? Is there a person who's actually really excited about your product? And when the leader changes, the tools changes. These sort of things happen. So luck plays a big part. So these things help you increase your luck surface area, but you have to be great at your core competency and what just the enterprise, the enterprise sales things needs. And then a lot of these things that I've talked about can be done with GenAI, right? These are like small things. Like these are things that GenAI is actually good at. Identifying insights, creating small reports. And it does not take a lot of information. Given that we've talked about keep the volume low, it will not take a lot of time to implement it when you're doing it. So take that as it is. And yeah, so, that's the summary. Make sure you have, identify your champions, help them grow, and everything else is going to follow from there. But yeah, thank you. Any questions?
You have any suggestions on how you can failure this by a small and medium business?
I think the main, the underlying threat is that incentives rule everything, right? Like even in the keynote, we've heard VCs have different incentives and founders have different incentives when they take VC money versus when they're not and whatnot. So even for small and medium businesses, I'd say, hey, if the small and medium business is trying to grow, then you can figure out my tool helps your company grow. So you can say, hey, my tool can actually help with these compliance XYZ things that you can then showcase to your customers. So that's at a company level, you figure out what the incentive is for why they buy it. Similarly, at an employee level, you can figure it out what the incentives are at any point in time for them. Yes.
Do you use open source tools, to add it in your pipeline or build solutions internally based on open source tools?
So yes, the corporates do use the open source tools. That's, they do evaluate, hey, is it something that we can have a team do and manage it versus buying something externally? So yes, that's something that, it's always evaluated.
I mean, how would you go about in making this build versus buy decision when it comes to specific security tooling? Say, for example, SCA, right? You have commercial SCA tools versus you have open source SCA tools. What is it that will make you lean more towards commercial and not go for the open source ones?
That's a very nuanced, difficult question because build versus buy is the main thing that that always happens at any place. So I think the major things are, do I have the resources and the time? The first thing people always, in large corporates, people almost always try to build first before they try to buy. And so it's is this within my charter that we want to do as a particular leader? Then do we have the budget and the resourcing to do it? And then how much time do I have to implement it? So there might be, for example, a company going to IPO soon would buy a lot of stuff compared to build. Compared to for example, Amazon, or they'll be yep, we'll just build whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
That when you're pitching a product initially, you should also try to aim for people, who are not maybe the top of the org chart, right? How would you recommend getting the attention of those people that you mentioned, security engineers and all, over, let's say, a CISO?
So I personally think finding the attention of the engineer is easier than getting the attention of a CISO, and that is via as I said, find people who love to talk. If you go to a conference, any conference, security conference, there are going to be people who would give you more information than they should. Ask them hey, who are the right people who've been in the organization for a long time, that their opinion carries weight, that are aligned with this problem space, where when this problem gets solved, these people get happy. Who are these people? Is the way to think about it. And you'll have to ask multiple people to get the right thing. But yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Any more? Yep. Okay. Thank you.